Hello and welcome to the Surgical Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haidar Al-Hakim, the Third Eye Doctor. Pull up a chair and get ready for some candid and uncompromising discussion with experts, innovators, agitators, and influential people from every corner of health and well-being. From inside the hospital to at home in the kitchen, we're leaving no stone unturned in our quest to uncover the secrets of healthier, happier, more successful, and less stressful lives. Thank you so much for joining us, and without further ado, let's meet this episode's guest. Hello Heidi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thanks for coming today. Thanks Nicola for coming, and thanks Jo for coming. So we're having a kind of foursome this afternoon. The weather's miserable. It's nice and warm here down in the basement.
It's very pleasant down in the basement.
Wonderful. Tell us about your work, Heidi, given that you've been in the NHS for such a long time.
Yes, I have been in the NHS for such a long time, and during that time I've always been interested in staff wellness. I think I'd probably say that during quite a long period of time, particularly on becoming a consultant, I had quite a sort of bizarre scenario where I almost led a double life, that I went to work and I did my job and tried to be as professional and do it as well as I could. But on the other side, in my private life, I sort of began to pursue more creative pursuits. So I'm part of a creative writing group. I've done a little bit of stand-up comedy. I did quite a lot of other things as well. And for a long time, these were very separate. I did begin to notice there's a little bit of crossover at a certain point in my life between, for example, good communication, and which I learned from a lot of things. You know, if you're performing, a good performer is a good communicator, and I was able to take some of the skills from that into communication skills at work. But certainly I'd never thought of really incorporating the two of them. I think staff wellness, as I say, I've always been interested in it, and I think people who are both in the NHS and outside the NHS are very aware that at times it's stressful. I think you only have to read a paper, you only have had to read a paper over the last few years to see that we're all under immense pressures.
And it's always about A&E departments as
I think A&E does feature. It is a high stressed environment. To a degree, we all accept we choose to do that as a profession. That's the environment it's going to be, but it is a high-stressed environment. What was
the trigger that made you marry the two together? Bring that creativity into that stressful environment.
Let me think. That's a good question. I think probably the thing that started it off was actually a style of theatre called forum theatre that I have written a tiny little bit about its use in the emergency department. And I first learned about forum theatre several years ago, 2013 actually, because I did a communications course. I was lucky enough to do a communications course, which is a pilot for a course that was being made to teach communication skills, but using techniques they use in acting. And it was taught at Central School of Speech and Drama. So I went there to do that pilot course one night every week for 6 weeks. And I found this fascinating because it did bring sort of my love of communication combined with performance and different things. And in the very last session, I think they talked about forum theatre, which was a style of theatre invented really 60s, 70s by a Brazilian called Augusto Boal, who used it. It's not a form of entertainment, it's to provoke social change. And it's in its simplest form, it's a form of community theatre. So he did it in Brazil, and you would use communities would work together with a few members of the community that would act out scenes that affected the community. And then you would get the audience to discuss what they'd seen, and then as a group to see if they could deal with this problem in a more satisfactory way. So the original scene ends badly, and it's almost a bit like a game. The audience has to go up and take over the part of the lead character to make the scene work
Okay,
well.
so it's that creative element.
So I found this really did, I suppose, really resonate with me. There was creativity, and I also think I was very. I just really like the idea that in any situation, no matter how difficult it is, that there's a whole range of elements that are making the situation difficult. But can any individual, by acting differently, make their situation better? And I appreciate this is controversial in many ways, and I think you have to be very careful that you're not trying to create a situation and doing that you're blaming any individual for the situation they're in. But it's just this, and because it's a community theatre, there's an element, I suppose, tribal wisdom, that you're looking at a whole lot of people. You all work together, so it is drawing on tribal wisdom, that if you all look to each other, can you learn from each other and find a way to just make things better. And
so it's having that sort of equal footing amongst every member of the team.
Yeah, I think it's and everybody can learn from everybody else.
Yeah.
And as I say, it's a way of moving. It's a way just of a group or a community coming together, and every group or community faces situations that they sometimes see, or challenges that are difficult to get beyond. But can the group or community pool their knowledge and can they make things, maybe even not solve the problem, but I'm a believer in can they make things better for themselves, and can they find a way to move forward.
And as we were talking before, you were talking about sometimes it's difficult to solve the problem, but if you sit with the problem long enough, and as a collective coming together as equals, you can get some interesting insights. Isn't it, Nicola?
Yes. I think the main thing sort of from partaking in the Forum Theatre was just the amount of discussion that it led. So obviously there's lots of, the performances at the very end of it, there's lots of work that you do with the groups of doctors and nurses, and we even had expert patients as well. And we're able to actually explore really challenging, difficult scenarios that we see in practice.
Could you give examples of that?
So lots of examples would be perhaps sort of aggression, sort of disagreement, conflict, breakdown in communication, really high pressured or stressful situations, which obviously in emergency medicine happens frequently. So times when people would feel oppressed or feel as if the system is trying to sort of have an agenda against them, and we were able to sort of discuss that. So we were looking at lots of things like power, systems, agents and your power within that. So we're discussing quite complicated sort of social ideas in the context of work, and people were able to do that in a really creative, sort of fun way, which made them feel as if they could sort of open up about it. So I think from being a participant on the Forum Theatre to going to facilitate it, it was really interesting just to see actually how it changed your mindset or your idea about what was happening at work. And it can just be you making a slight change in how you communicate, or it can just be you recognising that a situation is a bit different to what you think it is, which actually can impact really well for the people that you work with and the people that you're trying to look after. So it's exploring that all together and having really healthy discussions about that.
And it's reducing that expectation, because when expectations are really high, you get a lot of mismatch there. And also the most powerful thing in communication is listening, and maybe that's not being really emphasised upon. Listening.
I suppose communication is one part of it. So I think, and I'm a very strong believer that the Forum Theatre, to a degree, isn't just about. It teaches more than communication. So it's just. I think Boal, who devised it, said it's a rehearsal for life. So I think it's quite an important thing that it's just bringing up situations that everybody finds challenging and having a very long discussion about how you can you be different in these situations, and randomly will that get you a different outcome.
So if you're faced with a challenging situation, what are the 4 top things you would advise people to do?
if you're faced with the challenging situation. I think this is a slightly difficult one because it's. I think it all depends what the challenging the challenge is. I don't think there's any blanket.
So you've got a team member who's just being disruptive and is affecting the whole attitude of the team. What would you do in that situation?
I think it's like everything. I think in the scenario you've given, in that situation, what we do, I think in that particular situation we do what we always do, which is that you just need to talk to the person and find out why. And I think that I think, and as I say, I think again that goes back into the world of communication. I think though. I think I think there is something about communication. I think they'll go back to the general subject of wellness and how to improve staff wellness. I think good communication is obviously one thing, but it's really trying to use certain skills to create an environment that is sort of conducive, a positive environment that is communication, but it is other things as well.
So what's happening in the Whittington at the moment that's helping wellness?
Well, I suppose from our perspective was from the question, we took sort of our, first of all, Forum Theatre when I became aware of it, and then we were lucky enough to be able to introduce that as a project that we ran for several years. But then we began, or myself first, I think the first most important things was myself as a consultant, realised I worked with colleagues, both Nicola, a manager, and Jo, who's our practice development nurse, and the three of us, who were all sitting in different areas of the department, felt very strongly and very positively about wanting to create an environment about an improving staff wellness. So we had noted that, for example, during part of the Forum Theatre project itself, a lot of what you do and a lot of what actors do is there's certain things to do with playing a lot of games, which sound incredible. That sounds to everybody when you first say that almost ridiculously trivial. You play games, but actually, I think, and I'll let Jo and Nicola speak on this, we are very positive believers in these games because these games are working at numerous different levels, and there's so many different levels. I feel that the games, one level we work at, it's very similar to mindfulness. So I think the NHS itself is an advocate of mindfulness. I'm not anti-mindfulness, but I've always found it very difficult. But what mindfulness is doing is really getting you to focus and absorb in one thing and stop that rumination of negative thoughts. And actually, if you do the games, you're almost doing the same thing, but the games have the advantage that they're fun. And fun is a lot of healthy
Fun
benefits.
is the main thing at work for me.
Fun is very healthy, and there's a lot of the science behind it, and also it's a group activity. So it's instead of somebody doing something in isolation, it's getting everybody to do it together as a team. And there's not a lot of initiatives about that's taking a whole team, and that's what we want, is to create teamwork and introducing a whole team approach to wellness. So that was really what we wanted to do. And as I say, I was lucky enough, and I will let Jo speak about it because I think she is the games queen and is incredibly good at it. And then Nikki, who's a manager, was able to come at it from the perspective, having her back up and having her to be able to say, this is something that she, that views, but I will let them speak for themselves in there. So really what we're doing though is we decided to find a way, what we wanted to do as a group is find a way of taking what we felt were fun and creativity, which work in a similar way to mindfulness, and finding ways to introduce them to get our staff to work together.
Yeah. I think the main thing with the games and lots of the sort of pop-up wellness activities we do was to have it so that if you came to our department and you asked a question to our staff, what is your department doing about wellness, that they would have an answer for you. So that was the main aim of sort of our project, making people feel as if there was something that we were doing to try and make coming to work more fun and more enjoyable. And the games play a really good role of this because they create amazing connections. And it's not about sort of corporate team building, it's about being entirely silly. It's about having 10 minutes where you have some of the brightest, most intelligent people playing around in a room, and it really, really does impact on the way that they're able to work as a team out. I mean, these games are used in drama to take lots of individuals to make a cast so that the cast can perform on stage, and that's what we're going for. So we want to get it so that we've got these people from all different sort of teams throughout the multidisciplinary team, get them together for 10 minutes, get rid of any awkwardness, and it is designed to think about how they're feeling. We get them to, it's introspective, we want them to think about how they're feeling, express how they're feeling. We do games about emotions, we do games about, shouting and screaming, we do all sorts of silly things, and it just enables them to feel as if there's something extra to their day, which is the main point of it, really, isn't it?
I think for me, being a manager, obviously it's a little bit different, the pressures that I have compared to the people who are genuinely patient-facing day in, day out. But you feel quite responsible for the overall well-being of these teams, because you can only help in certain ways. You can't go out onto the shop floor and get completely involved. And I think that's why I wanted to get involved. I wanted to sort of try and, with my time, work with Heidi and Jo to create a culture of wellness and well-being in the department. And I think it's something about, giving people that time, that ability to say, okay, look, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of your time isn't going to change anything. We can go off, obviously, make sure everything's good. We can go off and we can have fun and we can be silly. And actually it's very interesting, because when you speak to people at the beginning of the 10 minutes, everyone's sort of a bit downtrodden. Everyone still thinks, oh, here we go, is it a bit silly? And by the end, everyone's wellness score is up, and adrenaline's going, and people go out onto shop floor. And we know that a healthy workforce, a happy workforce, is more efficient and more productive. And that, interestingly, isn't what we were concentrating on. Actually, it was completely about being able to, people to feel looked after. So there could be an individual that, in the workplace, but it's sort of this, the gain, the benefit of it is the productivity as well, which is fantastic.
Which is really interesting. The more you let go and the more human you are, and people realise that, the better the productivity and the efficiency and even the expertise as well.
And I think I think in emergency medicine, you have to be one team. It's more difficult to be a team of consultants, a team of nurses, a team of managers or administrators. You have to all work together in order to keep that.
Serious stuff.
So
super serious
this
stuff.
Sort of facilitates that as well, which is great.
And that's really interesting. We're coming towards the end of the podcast. We can talk for hours and hours about this, because it works in the most difficult of conditions. And teamwork in the most difficult conditions are not easy. It is difficult, but then there are these really simple concepts which, if introduced in the right way, can make a massive difference.
Yeah, I would say it's a very simple concept.
Yeah.
And we purposely had to find the most simple concept. So really, it was taken from. Once upon a time, we used to relieve our staff, our junior medical staff, to go for 1 hour's teaching once a week.
Yeah.
That stopped to be in any way able to work because of shift patterns, etc. So we changed it. The more effective, we gave them 10 minutes of teaching every day, which works out to the same amount of time, but it was divided into 10-minute slots over the week, which were more efficient. We could also improve education in the department because we could include everybody in that, so we could include nursing staff, so everybody came together for 10 minutes. So what we did was we took one 10-minute slot and said that was focusing on staff wellness. And we focus on staff wellness, so it's a whole team activity, and we took all the staff, for that one 10-minute teaching slot, and we either used games, which are what are called icebreaker games, and a lot of them come from the drama world. They're warm-up games. They focus on multitasking, which is something we have to do in the emergency department anyway. So we either did games or we did a creative activity, such as painting origami,
Yeah.
and it was all done for 10 minutes.
And a magician.
And a magician.
That always works. Magic always works.
Oh, magic always works.
Yeah.
And we averaged it, so once a week we try to do something, the games, or we do something creative.
Yeah.
I do believe, and I think there's certain things written about this, they're the same as mindfulness, because what they're doing is, instead of people focusing on their breath or focusing on something like that, what it is that the team is doing is they're focusing very firmly in something like clapping in a rhythm, or they're focusing on colouring, or they're focusing on folding. So it's in a similar way to mindfulness, but they're all doing it as a team. As I say, there's multiple health benefits from laughing, which are written about. It lowers your blood pressure, it releases endorphins, it bonds. There's something called fun theory, which says people are more likely to change their behaviour if fun is involved.
Yeah.
So it's all these things to combine and connect people, and we do it just, the basic, we've added to it, we've done other projects, but the basic is trying to just do it for 10 minutes once a week.
Yeah, and it absolutely works. Thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you so much, Jo. Thank you so much for Nicola.
Thank you.
And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you want to play a game?
Thanks for listening to this instalment of the Surgical Spirit podcast. For all the latest in the world of surgical spirit, don't forget to follow on Twitter at The Third Eye Doc, and catch me on Facebook at the page The Third Eye Doctor. You can visit the website at www.thethirdeyeDoctor.co.uk for more information on the work that I do. And please send us feedback and questions and suggestions for the podcast. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. I've been Dr. Haidar Al-Hakim, and I'll see you next time.